My alarm went off at 6:13, but I'd been staring at the ceiling for hours. I've never trusted the dark much, but lately it's the mornings that feel wrong. The air feels heavy, the kind that pushes down on your chest. My phone said Tuesday, but it didn't feel like any Tuesday I'd lived. I forced myself out of bed, shoved my feet into cold sneakers, and went to check on Mom. She was up, already sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. The coffee maker hissed and burped behind her. My mother's not the type to zone out. She's the queen of to-do lists, but this week she's been weird. Last night I heard her on the phone whispering to my Aunt Lisa, and it sounded like crying, but Mom never cries. She said it was just allergies. I didn't push it. Usually the first thing I do is scroll through my phone, but I've been avoiding it. The news has been poison. Every headline bleeds anxiety. Still, it's a habit, so I peeked at notifications. Group chat was just memes. Twitter was a mess. Something about a hospital. Another hashtag, stay home, was trending. I scrolled fast, skipped past a blurry video with blood on the floor tiles. Some security guard screaming. I didn't want to see that, I just wanted to feel normal for a second. When I took out the trash, there was a military van parked at the end of the block. Not like the National Guard we saw for hurricanes. This one was unmarked, blacked out windows, engine rumbling. The driver just sat there, staring straight ahead. I tried to make eye contact, but he didn't move. Someone on next door said they saw army guys at the grocery store, full uniform, buying water and duct tape. Some people said it was just a drill. Some people said it was a test. I started to think it was just us. My neighbor, Mr. Owens, came out to get his mail. He's 90, nearly blind, still wears those giant 8S glasses. He waved, but his hand was shaking. I said hi, but he didn't say anything back, just shuffled back inside. Later I saw a red streak across his front steps, like someone dropped tomato juice. But we don't have any kids on our street, not anymore. I didn't want to look too close. Back inside, I poured myself cereal and turned on the news. Every channel was arguing with itself. Some anchor said everything was under control. The guy on the next station said martial law was a rumor. Local news played video of an empty playground, police tape everywhere. I messaged my best friend, Kevin, asked if he wanted to hang out. He just sent back a meme, something about quarantine life. No plans, no explanation. That's when my phone buzzed. The group chat started blowing up with weird messages. Anna said her uncle saw people fighting outside the Costco. Brian swore he saw cops with riot shields downtown. My phone pinged so much, it started to heat up. I called Kevin. He didn't pick up. I texted again, but nothing. The Wi-Fi started acting up. The internet dropped, then came back. Instagram froze on a picture of a little kid with a mask, crying, smeared red all over her face. Was it paint? The comments were a mess, half of them yelling fake, the rest begging for help. I tried to call my cousin in Chicago. Just static. I asked Mom if she heard anything from Aunt Lisa. She shook her head, eyes shining. I realized she'd been checking the front window, again and again, like she was waiting for something to show up in the yard. That's when I knew something was actually wrong. I went up to my room and tried to distract myself with a game. Couldn't focus. Every sound outside made me twitch. Sirens. Then, for a long stretch, nothing at all. Like the whole block was holding its breath. I checked the window and saw the military van was gone, but a streak of something dark was on the street where it had been. I couldn't tell if it was oil or blood or something else. It felt like the world was shifting, like the ground was moving under my feet, but nobody else noticed. I heard someone banging on Mr. Owen's door. I watched from my window, waiting for him to answer, but nobody did. Whoever was outside just kept pounding, shouting, but it sounded wrong, like they didn't know how to talk. I wanted to call the cops, but my phone was dead. Just like that, black screen, Wouldn't turn back on. I tried the landline in the kitchen, nothing but silence. Even the radio was just static now. Mom was still at the table, hands clenched around her coffee mug. "Lock the doors," she whispered. I asked why, but she just said, "Please." So I did. I slid the chain across the front door. I checked the windows. I thought about pushing the couch in front of the back door, but it felt stupid, like we were overreacting. But I did it anyway. I found the hammer in the junk drawer. I carried it around the house, just in case. I wanted to call Kevin again, or Brian, or Anna, but nobody answered. I looked out the window again. Someone was walking down the street, slow, dragging one foot. Maybe they were drunk. Maybe they were hurt. But something about the way they moved made me step back from the glass. I didn't want them to see me. I stood there, heart pounding, and realized I was waiting for a sound I'd never heard before. Something to let me know this was all just a mistake, that everything would go back to normal. But it didn't. It just got quieter. I told myself it was all in my head, but I kept thinking about that van, about the blood, about the static on the phone. I told myself I'd feel better in the morning, but I didn't believe it. It was still dark when I heard the sirens again. This time they didn't fade out. They blared, echoing down the empty streets, pulsing through the walls. I looked at my phone, but it was still dead. I found Mom in the living room, clutching her phone, but her hands were shaking so bad she could barely hold on to it. She asked if I wanted pancakes, but her voice was all wrong. I said yes, just to say something. She disappeared into the kitchen and turned on the stove. The sound of the lighter clicking made me jump. Then came the pounding, not like before, not one person, but heavy, uncoordinated, too many fists at once. It was the side door. I grabbed the hammer again. I didn't want to look, but I forced myself. Through the window I could see shapes pressed up against the glass. At first I thought it was just people trying to get in, desperate, maybe scared. But their faces weren't right. Their mouths moved, but the sounds didn't match up. Blood dripped down one guy's chin like he'd bitten into something raw. His eyes locked on mine, and he slammed his head against the glass so hard I heard it crack. I yelled for Mom. She ran into the room with a spatula in her hand like that would help. We backed away, and I dragged the old bookcase in front of the door. The pounding didn't stop. I tried calling 911, but the line was dead, just static. I could hear the neighbors shouting next door, someone screaming, then a thud, and nothing. We huddled in the hallway, listening. The news on TV flickered, then froze. The anchor's face glitched, pixelated, and then it switched to an emergency broadcast. "This is a national emergency. Quarantine is in effect. Remain inside your homes. Do not open your doors for anyone." The words repeated over and over, then cut to a black screen. My skin crawled. The pounding at the door turned into scraping, like fingernails on the wood. I could feel the tension, like fingernails on the wood. For a second, I thought maybe they'd give up, but the glass shattered. A hand reached in, gray skin and torn nails grabbing at the bookshelf, scraping at the floor. Mom screamed, and I swung the hammer, hitting the hand hard enough to break the wrist. It didn't even flinch. Another face pressed through the broken glass, lips pulled back, eyes rolling. I shoved the bookshelf tighter, but it was barely holding. I pulled Mom back toward the stairs. We bolted up to my room, slammed the door, shoved my dresser in front of it. The sound downstairs got louder. Furniture scraping, glass crunching, heavy things hitting the floor. Something thudded against the wall hard enough to rattle the windows. I realized I was holding my breath, waiting for our door to burst open. Mom started praying, whispering words I'd never heard her say. I could hear movement in the hallway. Something was dragging itself up the stairs, slow and heavy. I grabbed the hammer again, arms shaking so hard I almost dropped it. The doorknob turned. I pressed my back against the door, bracing with everything I had. Then it stopped. Silence, just the sound of our own breathing, ragged and sharp. I tried the window, but the screen was bolted down. My hands were slick with sweat. I could hear more movement outside, people shouting, glass breaking, sirens blaring and then cutting off. I saw Mr. Owen's front door hanging open, the mail scattered. The red streak on the steps was bigger now, a smeared handprint. No sign of him. My phone buzzed, just for a second, like it wanted to turn on. I saw one message from Kevin, "Bro, don't answer." That was it. No timestamp, no explanation. I tried to text back, but the phone died again. I peeked out the window. In the neighbor's yard, I saw a little girl. I think it was Sophie from 2 houses down, walking in circles, her hair matted with something dark. She kept bumping into the fence, turning around, then walking back the other way. She wasn't crying. She wasn't making any sound at all. I turned away and nearly tripped over Mom, who was on the floor, hugging her knees. She looked at me and whispered, "We need to get out." I wanted to laugh. Where were we supposed to go? The street was chaos. I saw people running, screaming. Some of them fell, and the ones behind them kept going, stepping on them. There was a car on fire at the end of the block, smoke rolling up and blotting out the sunrise. We needed a plan. I remembered Dad's old baseball bat in the garage, but the garage was at the back of the house, near where the glass broke. I thought about the attic. It was cramped, hot, but it had a tiny window that faced the alley. Maybe we could slip out, jump the fence, and make a run for it. Then the house shook. Something slammed into the front door, splintering wood. I heard a wet, choking sound. Mom grabbed my hand, squeezed so tight it hurt. I led her to the attic stairs, half carrying her. She was crying now, whispering my name. We climbed up, and I pulled the trap door shut behind us. In the dark, we waited. I tried not to breathe too loud. From the attic window, I could see more people staggering through the alley, covered in blood, dragging themselves along the walls. They weren't right. Not just sick. Not just hurt. Their bodies moved like puppets, like something else was in control. One of them looked up at me, mouth hanging open, eyes clouded over. I dropped down, heart slamming, and pulled Mom close. We stayed there, shaking, listening to the sounds of our house being torn apart. I knew there was no going back to how things were. Not ever again. That's when I realized I wasn't just scared for us. I was scared for everyone. The world outside wasn't the world I knew. The rules had changed, and nobody was ready. I used to think I knew what I was capable of. I'd never been in a real fight, never even broken a bone. My biggest worry was failing a math test or getting caught sneaking out after curfew. But by the time the attic started to get light, all that was gone. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, and I could hear Mom crying softly behind me, trying not to let me notice. It was all I could do not to break down myself. I looked out the attic window every few minutes, counting the staggering figures as they moved up and down the street, looking for any sign of normal life. There wasn't any. The house below us groaned. I could hear scraping, dragging sounds and a heavy, wet breathing that didn't belong to anything human. It was like the zombies, or whatever they were, couldn't remember how to use their bodies right. Every time one would smash into a wall or stumble into the furniture, the noise would make Mom jump. At some point, I realized I was squeezing the hammer so hard my knuckles were white. I tried to make a plan. There had to be a way out. We couldn't just stay up here forever. I whispered to Mom, told her we needed to get supplies. Food, water, the bat in the garage. She nodded, but I saw her eyes, empty, scared. She was trusting me because she didn't have anyone else to trust. I felt like a kid again, but worse, because now, if I messed up, We died. I waited until the scraping sounds drifted toward the back of the house. I pushed open the attic window. The alley below was quiet. Just one figure, limping, head twitching side to side. I didn't want to, but I had to risk it. I squeezed through, dropped onto the old shed's roof, and hit the ground hard enough to bite my tongue. I could taste blood. I crawled along the fence, ducked into the garage, and grabbed the bat. When I turned, the zombie in the alley was at the fence, staring at me through the slats. Its eyes were fogged, teeth bloody. It tried to reach for me, fingers groping, but got tangled in the boards. I slipped out, heart slamming, clutching the bat and a toolbox. Back in the attic, Mom hugged me so tight I thought she might break my ribs. I shoved snacks, a couple of water bottles, and the bat into an old backpack. Every sound in the house made my heart slam. The noise from below got louder. Something had found the stairs, maybe a few of them. I braced the attic door with a broom, knowing it wouldn't last. Then everything exploded at once. The door below burst open. I heard voices. Real voices. People, not monsters. A family from across the street, dragging a wounded man, slammed into our hallway. "Help us!" a woman screamed. Her voice broke on the last word. I hesitated, looking at Mom. She stared at the attic door, her lips trembling. If I opened it, maybe we could help. But if we did, we'd let the dead in, too. I made my choice. I opened the attic door, braced the bat, and helped them inside. The wounded man was bleeding bad, his arms shredded, eyes wild. He looked at me and gasped, "Don't let him get me." I nodded, but my stomach dropped. I knew the stories. You get bit, you turn. I shoved the family inside and slammed the door, wedging it shut. Down below, the sounds got closer. Moans, snarling, the sick slap of flesh on wood. The wounded man started convulsing. His wife screamed. I saw blood bubbling at the corners of his mouth. Mom started sobbing, covering her ears. I knew what was about to happen. I grabbed the bat. The man jerked, spasmed, and then he lunged at me, teeth snapping. I swung the bat as hard as I could, hitting him in the head. He fell, twitching. The woman screamed again, but I didn't stop. Couldn't. Had to make sure he wouldn't hurt anyone else. When it was done, I was covered in blood, my arms numb, the bat slick in my hands. The family stared at me in horror. I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. I knew they'd never see me the same again. But I didn't care. I wasn't the same. The attic started to shake. The dead were inside the house now, thumping at the ceiling, clawing at the trap door. The woman begged us not to leave her husband behind, but I couldn't. I shoved them toward the window. "Go now!" I shouted. Mom hesitated, tears running down her face, but I pushed her out onto the shed roof, then crawled after her. The family followed, crying, clinging to each other. The trap door behind us burst open, dead arms clawing through. We slid down the shed roof and hit the alley, running. The dead spilled out behind us, howling, crawling, dragging themselves after us. I didn't look back. We ran through the backyards, over fences, through hedges. Every step someone fell, someone screamed. I looked for Kevin's house, but it was already burning. Windows shattered, the garage door ripped off. No sign of him. My phone buzzed, miraculously alive for a second, but the screen was just static. We ducked into an abandoned RV, slamming the door, holding it shut. Mom was shaking, staring at her bloody hands. The family huddled in the corner, crying. I braced the bat across the handles, waiting, listening to the dead battering at the sides. The night dragged on. When the noise finally stopped, I opened the door. The street outside was ruined. Cars smashed, blood in the gutters, bodies everywhere. The sun was coming up, but it didn't feel like morning. It felt like something else, something worse. I looked at Mom, at the family, at the empty world beyond. The rules had changed. I had changed. I picked up the bat and started walking, one step at a time, into whatever came next. No hope, no plan, just survival. The old life was gone for good, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever want it back.